most projects that I do, I get started on them, and somewhere about halfway through I think, you know what, I should be putting this on film, because there's somebody out there that wants to do this, that needs to do this, that may not know how to do it. So it's good to record it. So that's what I'm doing. Hey, I'm glad you came by. So here's what I've got going. Just like anything, all the projects, you know, they always seem like they're going to turn out pretty good and they're going to turn out pretty simple. But when you get into real life, you know, it always takes some kind of a modification. I've got the 1980 Sylvan Deep V boat. Okay, and it's got the 85 horsepower original 1979 Chrysler motor on it. Strong motor, good motor. But makes me a little bit nervous. I just don't know the motor, and I'm just concerned I'm going to get out on a big lake and it's going to fail on me, and now I'm going to be stranded out there. I do have a trolling motor, but still, battery's going to wear down. Not a good thing. Plus, I also like the idea of having a kicker motor, because that way there, if I'm pulling into my favorite fishing spots, my favorite coves, you know, I shut the big Chrysler off. It's a pretty loud motor. I shut it off, and then I'm going to turn on my little kicker motor and just kind of creep back there and not scare the fish. Throw me a line in, bam, 10-pounder bass. Oh yeah. Well, let me get off subject here. So this is what I got going. I went and picked me up this real nice Tohatsu 9.8 engine, 4-stroke, very, very nice. And I'm going to mount it right next to the Chrysler 85 horse. So in a perfect world, the 85 horse, it would be centered, obviously, and the 9.8 would just nestle in right next to it, and everything would be fine. Well, it's never the case. Nothing is ever just perfect. What I quickly found out is that the Chrysler 85 horsepower has this steering mechanism here, and when I turn it one way, this steering arm will come out and it's going to get in the way of the new 9.8. Okay, not a problem. I was able to move it over a little bit farther. Well, once I got it mounted up, when I took the 9.8 and I took the steering handle and I moved it, it hit the side of the boat right here. It hit the side of the Sylvan right here. So I'm thinking, oh boy, okay. So what am I going to do? Okay, so this is my plan I'm working on, and so far it looks like it's working pretty good, and this is why I thought I'd turn my camera on and show you what's going on. So on the 9.8, I have to raise it up some in order to get everything to work out. How am I going to do that? This is the transom of the boat, factory transom of the boat. This is a thick piece of aluminum right here. This has got aluminum on the back side right here. So what I'm working out is, I take my little piece of cardboard like this, and I put it on there, and you can see I've got this curve cut out on the piece of cardboard. So it comes in there just like that. So my plan is I'm going to take a 2x6 treated wood, 2x6 treated wood. Now I'm going to mount a piece of treated wood, going to cut it out, put it on here, bring it up here like this, and then at that point there, I've got some thick pieces of metal that I'm actually going to build a metal plate, and it's going to come up over the 2x6 and come down, so I can anchor to the 2x6 and anchor to the transom. I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then I'm going to run a couple bolts all the way through, several bolts all the way through, and sandwich it together. That should work out pretty good. That will raise up the 9.8 high enough so it'll miss this point when I steer. The steering arm will go past here, and both motors will not hit each other as you're operating. Because if you get the 9.8 too close, when you turn the Chrysler this way, the shroud was hitting the shroud on the 9.8. So just like anything else, it's just some modifications that I had to go through in order to get to this point. I don't mind, because I really like this setup and I want to make sure I do it right. So that was my step. That's why I wanted to turn the camera on and just show you. This was the first step. to build this template. Now I'll go up there and cut it out of wood, a piece of treated wood, come back here and see how it's going. Apologize for the neighbor's dog over here just barking and barking and barking. Must be some kind of a new dog that they got. I don't recognize it barking like this before, but man, it just goes on and on for hours at a time. You know, we've got watchdogs ourselves, but we've trained them not to sit out there and bark like this. The thing, I think, here's a mouse and it barks for 2 hours. I don't know. But anyways, bear with me. It's the way it goes. Okay, so this is what I've got going here. Let me switch this around just a little bit. So this is what I got going here. I just cut out this piece of wood. Now this is a treated 2x6. I got it at Home Depot. Now, in order to cut this piece of wood, I actually used 3 different saws. I used a miter saw to cut this 45. I used a saber saw or jigsaw to cut this rounded edge off right here. And then, because this slope on the boat is actually dropping down toward the center, if I just would have left the top the way it is, it would, once I put it on there, one end would be lower than the other. It wasn't level. Now it's kind of funny because I'm not saying that the boat is sitting here level, but when you look, when you can eyeball the top of this new piece to this board that's going across here, you can tell whether or not they're going to be equal or whether or not one is running differently than the other one. So I was able just to eyeball it and come pretty close. So this is what I've got right here. So you can see this is going to go on, and it is going to mount just like this and slide it up against there, and it's going to sit on there just like that right there, and that's going to give my 9.8 plenty enough room over to this side. It should be high enough so that tiller handle will swing past this area right here, so I'll sit on this little platform right here, and I'll be able to run the tiller handle, and I can go back and forth over the top of this. It was hitting before, so that should work out pretty good. And you can see that looks nice. Now, you know, I've looked at the Chrysler. It's got the steering arm. It comes out, but it comes on past on the inside of this board. That's not a problem. I will attach this in several places, like with some anchors down through here, and in this area right here, I'll put one here and one down a little bit more. So that'll at least hold it in place. At that point, At that point, I've got this steel, and this is 16 gauge steel right here, 16 gauge metal. I've got it to where this will go on. This plate right here will go on the back side, and I'll custom cut it so it's on the back side, and then I'll cut a piece. So the way I'm kind of laying this out, the prototype that I'm doing here, is this piece will sit right here like this, and to kind of hold it and temporarily hold it in place, I'll put an anchor through here and an anchor through here and maybe a few more anchors, and then I'll take this piece of steel right here, 16 gauge steel, and I'll run it up to something like it'll ran up there. I'm not sure if I'll keep it this far down or not. I may, just for the added strength, but I'll put this piece on this side, I'll put a piece on the other side, and then I'll drill through, and then I'll bolt it. I'll bolt it 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, and then I also have some number 14 lags that'll go in and just go into the actual transom itself. So I think once it's said and done, I think that's going to be pretty strong. Once again, it's a 9.8, so it should hold up pretty good. It's not going to have actually a ton of force on it, but then again, you know, an engine when it goes, it's one thing when you're just sitting there holding it on the transom, but as soon as you give it power, you can imagine the torque that it's going to feel, either reverse, forward, whichever way it's going to torque at. You want to make sure that this piece I'm putting on here is very, very strong. Okay, it's been another productive but tough day, long day. Was working on the J20, the Jeep Liberty, and now I'm back to working on the Sylvan, the 1980 Sylvan Deep V. What I ended up doing is putting this bracket on here in order to raise the 9.8 Tohatsu engine up, and that way there the Chrysler doesn't interfere with it. The Tohatsu will not interfere with the Chrysler, and so I think this bracket's going to work pretty good, and it's going to raise the Tohatsu up far enough where it's not going to hit this corner right there, and that was my problem. You can see what I've got is pieces of metal on one side, pieces of metal on the back side here. In some cases, I used 1 inch, kind of like a 1 inch lag into the wood itself. That's the ones without the washer, and the ones with the washers are actually bolts that go all the way through to the other side, sandwich the 2 pieces of metal and the wood in, and make almost like a header, I guess. In carpentry terms, it'd be like a header. So I think that's pretty dang strong right now. I'm going to go ahead and put the Tohatsu on there and see how it does. But I got a feeling that's going to take care of the problem I had with everything touching and rubbing and the handle not being able to turn all the way. I think that's going to take care of it. So let's go ahead and put the engine on there and see what it does. I tell you what, that engine weighs 87 pounds, but I think that's without the electric start. With the electric start, I think it's got a starter in it, so I think it weighs a few more pounds than that. It feels pretty heavy when you pick it up and put it on there. I wouldn't want to carry it around very far. Alright, so I got everything mounted up and it's looking pretty good. See, my main thing was the tiller handle was actually hitting this side of the boat right here, and I wanted to make sure that I could clear this side. I wanted to make sure, especially on this 9.9, that I had full turn ratio, all the way one way, completely the other way. Very important when you have a small motor and you're maneuvering around logs and trees and things like that. So now when I put it down, it'll come all the way over as far as it can, turn this way. It comes all the way over, turns that way, and it clears. And this clears right here, and that's what I was concerned with. Also, when this motor is sideways, it does not get into the Chrysler. And when I turn the Chrysler all the way this way, it does not get into the Tohatsu. So that's good. So I think I've got it all worked out. Finally. Now I've got to hook the motor up, hook the gas lines up, got to hook my anchor up. I had an anchor sitting right here, and an anchor winch was sitting right here, and I had to move it to the other side. I've got to hook it up, but getting pretty close now. All right, project continues. Hey, I'm glad you came by. This is LAF Space Film Fest, capital LAF Space Film Fest. Hey, hammer down that subscribe button. I appreciate it. It helps me to put out videos like this to help you. Alright, both motors are looking good. They make a pretty good pair, I think. Hey, I appreciate you coming by. You have a good day. Be on the lookout for a video coming soon.